Starlink Battle for Atlas. Folks, this is what I like to call a can't miss game. I'm not going to say it's the best game at E3 because I didn't play every single game there was at E3. I don't even know if it's the best game I played at E3. After all, I played Pokemon, but I only had 5 minutes with it. I played Smash, probably about only 5 minutes with that. I played a lot of games. Ninjala, spent the most time with Ninjala. But the game I spent the second most time with was Starlink. Two reasons for that. One, I did play it twice. And two, each demo session lasts about 20 minutes. So I spent about 40 minutes playing Starlink. And Starlink is the only game at E3 that I played in both handheld mode and in docked mode. So I played it, in the full digital version, as they call it, and then I also played with the Toys to Life aspect on a TV. So I get to double my experience basically here and tell you my thoughts on Starlink Battle for Atlas from E3. Now, when I say it's a can't miss game, I say that because if you love Star Fox games, if you love Rogue Squadron games, you're going to love Starlink Battle for Atlas. It is a brand new IP being created by Ubisoft. It is multi-platform, and no, I don't care if you're looking at getting this thing on Switch or if you're looking at getting it on Xbox One or PlayStation 4. All of my playtime came with Switch, so that is where my perspective is coming from, and that is the platform I will be buying the game for. But I just suggest this game overall. If you have any doubts about this game because of the Toys to Life aspect, I know that turns some people off. The moment you see someone holding the controller with a spaceship on top, you start to think this is crazy. I'm not gonna touch it. But I'm telling you, at least based on this demo, it is awesome. So the demo started you off with a basic ship. It's probably the starter ship you get when you buy the game, whether you have the physical manifestation of that ship from a bundle or whether you just have the standard ship. It's just there in the game. When you're playing on TV mode, you don't have to use the Toys to Life. I want to make this very, very clear. The Toys to Life aspect of Starlink Battle for Atlas is 100% optional. You do not need to ever buy a single toy for this game. Everything is available within the game itself. There might be some of the weapons or stuff that maybe unlock or it's a digital purchase. But either way, it's all available without the Toys to Life stuff. So I want to get that out there right away. But I'm going to give my Toys to Life experience as well. But the first demo I played was in handheld mode. And it wasn't exactly the greatest gameplay experience because I was kind of holding off the Switch to the side so Eric could get better footage. But that's neither here nor there. The actual game itself is quite interesting. You have your basic ship, and you start off with a character named Mason. Now, you can play through this game with any of the main pilots. There are 4 pilots I'm aware of. I don't remember the name of the other 2. I remember Mason because he was the main guy they kept having you play with. And then there's also on Switch Star Fox, and then there's two other characters I remember. One was a bit bulkier and almost felt robotic, and then there was also a lady, a female character. So you could play through the entire game with just one of these characters. In the demo, you basically played until either until you defeated 2 bosses or until you ran out of time because they limit it to 20 minutes because the demo is infinite. It doesn't really end. So basically, if you beat the second boss, they'll take the controller away. If you hit 20 minutes, they'll take the controller away. Or if for some reason 3 ships get destroyed, they take your controller away because that's game over for the demo. You basically have 3 lives. I don't know how that works in the final game. I'm sure it's not quite like that, but for demo purposes, obviously they had to find a way to make it so people didn't just play it for hours and hours on end. So what I really liked about the start of the game is you basically spend the entire game in a spaceship, just like you do in Star Fox or Rogue Squadron. There is like a Landmaster style mode to the spaceship, so you can go down to the land and kind of treat it as a tank of sorts, and there's little moves and barrel rolls and stuff you can do like that are very reminiscent of the Landmaster from Star Fox 64. So it very much has a lot of Star Fox influence, but with a lot of the freedom of Rogue Squadron. So if you remember in Star Fox, you're kind of on rails for large parts of the game until you get to like the boss fight, where you get to the final boss fight and you kind of get more free roaming stuff. Well, this game is basically free roaming all the time with Star Fox-like mechanics. That's why I said it's a combination of Rogue Squadron, which is free roaming all the time, and in Star Fox. So what I found really interesting is that when you start off the demo, you're not actually on a planet yet. You're actually out in outer space, out in the universe, and you can go anywhere you want. There's practically no load screens here. It's crazy. You can zip down. I mean, where they have you go is there's an indicator in the HUD that shows you like this is your main objective, so go here. But you don't have to do the main objective. You can go anywhere you want. And the one thing I regret in both of my demo tries is both times I went straight to the planet that we're supposed to be on. I should have tried to see how much of the outer space I could explore in the demo. Maybe there's other planets I could have even went to, other solar systems, other galaxies. I don't know. But I didn't try that out, so I can't tell you. But I can tell you start out in outer space, and then you go down to this planet, and it's a seamless transition from outer space to planet. You speed down to the planet, and then you, even as you're coming into the planet, it's not like this ease of transition. You need to convert yourself from nose diving straight down into the ground into hovering on the surface, all in one smooth motion. And I believe it was you had to hold down R when you got close enough to the ground to make your ship level out so you didn't crash. So that was kind of cool. I like that sort of realism, that it doesn't automatically level you out, that you as a player need to pay attention. You can't just speed rush into the planet and everything's fine. I mean, you can if you want to die, but yeah. So like the very first time I played the demo, I didn't see the prompt to, it was right there down in the right corner, but I didn't see it at first, so I crashed into the planet, so that was fun. I didn't actually die from that, but it did severe damage to my ship. And then by the time I got to the first boss fight, because the first time I played it, I just followed the person's instructions, which was basically, okay, over here is where the first boss fight is. There were 2 boss fights, and the very first one, the first time I played the demo, I just went boss fight to boss fight. The first boss fight was rather simple, I want to say. The second one stands out more, but the first one, there was essentially these pillars surrounding this giant thing in the middle. And basically, there would be orbs that would appear on the pillars. You needed to shoot the orbs, destroy those, and then the weak spot would be revealed on the enemy in the middle, the big boss. You shoot that, blah, blah, blah. There's all these little enemies shooting you all the time, but I basically ignored them, took out the boss, and then moved on to the second boss. The second boss was very interesting. It would lift up its arm like it's coming down to slam at the ground and create like this big shockwave of stuff. But when it lifts its arm up, if you shoot at right where the arm connects to the body, it was kind of like a spider-like boss. It would cause the boss to fall down and then unveil a red weak spot on its face. Rinse and repeat that, and then the boss would get angry. Let's put it that way. And start to run, and you'd have to chase it down, and then it would have new weak spots appear. These little glowing edges would grow on each of its legs. You needed to destroy all of those, and then basically you beat the boss. That was how the second boss worked. So very simplistic boss fights, but very, very fun. And I really enjoyed them. It reminded me so much of Star Wars, so much of Rogue Squadron. It's crazy. You in the handheld mode, not using any of the toys of life, you could still swap out weapons, swap out ships. I did actually lose my one ship in the handheld mode on the first boss fight, because after all, I did a ton of damage to that ship when I crashed into the ground. So it was like 1 or 2 hits later, that ship was done. I noticed I could select the R-Wing. So I did get to play with the R-Wing. Did the R-Wing feel different than the other ships? I can't say that it necessarily did based on my limited time with it, but it doesn't mean that it won't in the final game. All of the ships have different unique aspects to it, but in a demo like this, I really wasn't paying close enough attention to see what those differences are. No, I did not get to play as Star Fox. Star Fox was not available to play, and no, even on TV mode, when I got to use the toys, they had a Star Fox toy in a display case, but it's just a prototype. They do not actually have a working Star Fox toy at E3. It will obviously be there at launch. You can already buy a bundle that includes Star Fox and his R-Wing and some weapons and stuff like that for Switch. So you can already pre-purchase it all. It'll be there day one. But it was very, very interesting. Very, very smooth. I'm pretty sure it was running at 30 FPS. And I'll get into why I think that in a second. But the thing is at first I was tricked into thinking it was 60 and everything was really smooth and handheld. But when I played in TV mode, there were dips, and the dips went down into the teens and maybe even lower. There was definitely some frame rate stutter at times, and that's when I realized it has to be the 30s, because I don't think there's any way this game dips from 60s down into the single digits in the teens. So I think it runs at 30 FPS. Didn't really care in handheld. Noticed in TV mode. In TV mode, You start off again with Mason, or he encourages you to start off with Mason and the basic ship. I did use the basic ship, but I didn't start with Mason because I've already played with Mason as a pilot before. I think I put the female pilot in, and I basically played with her for most of the rest of the time. I did swap out. I did put Mason. I basically put all the pilots in at one point because I went through 3 ships. There were 3 pilots available to play, so I ended up playing with all 3 pilots. But because basically how my second demo ended when I was playing on TV is I died. I destroyed all 3 ships, and that was the end of it. But that was kind of intentional because I didn't care about beating the bosses again. I had already done it. I did defeat the first boss pretty quickly because it was just right there. But then I explored a little bit, and that was what's so crazy is there's your main objectives, but you can just go freely explore the entire planet. It's awesome. Run off in any direction you want and find stuff. And that's when I started to realize there are things to find. There are, I found a treasure chest that had some stuff in it. There's different enemy types out there. I fought these kind of ground enemies that were, they had like 2 to 4 legs, and they had different ways they attacked you, and so like you had to learn different tactics to take them out. You could hot swap weapons. Like I used a charge shot weapon, like a charge shot and like a railgun were like my main weapons. The charge shot, you literally hold the button in, charge it, shoot it, and then it creates this ball that gets to its destination, and then that ball explodes and it does a crap load of damage. I love the charge shot. It's hard in certain situations, but it's great in others. They also had like a homing missile one where wherever your reticule is on the screen, when you hit your firing button, it doesn't matter what happens after that. Those missiles are going to kind of fly around and hit wherever your reticule was, so it's like a homing missile style. They had like a flame gun. That was really cool. There were some ice enemies I encountered in TV mode, and I would use yes, it's a very short range weapon, but it does a lot of damage. So it would be like a flame gun, and you would just sit there and just light all these enemies on fire and melt all the ice enemies. That was really, really cool. And the game's gorgeous, by the way. I don't know if it came through in the footage you're watching now, but the game is beautiful. I can't praise how good this game looks enough, especially on Switch. I can't believe this game's on Switch. I just can't. Looking at it, I can't believe it. And I saw people playing it on PlayStation 4 and stuff, and yes, I know it does look better on that platform, but man, on Switch, this game looks gorgeous. It is amazing. Now, I mentioned before frame rate dips, and what happened is I did eventually get to the second boss fight. I was flying around exploring things. I found like space bases and all this really cool stuff going on, trying to figure out what's going on this planet. What makes this planet so unique? It was kind of a red planet, right? Like a red sand, a Mars style planet. And eventually I did get to the second boss, and I was just toying with the second boss, and I learned like there's different moves you can do. The guy taught me different moves. Like you can do barrel rolls, you can do quick turnaround, do like 180-degree turns and stuff like that. It's really cool, all these different moves you have that I learned that I didn't know when I was playing it on handheld. But at one point, because the boss himself, every time he slams the ground, new enemies would come up out of the ground. It's kind of like these are the local creatures that live on the planet, and when he pounds the ground, it disturbs the ground, and they live underground and they come up. So that was kind of cool. But at one point, there were like 18 to 30 of these things on screen, and along with the boss, and every time I'd face the boss to try to target him, there was some lag. Some bad lag. Now, I did not experience this in handheld mode, but I also was so focused on killing the boss that I never had 18 to 30 enemies on screen at once. So, I do want to note this was an alpha build. They told me not beta. It was an alpha build, so there's a lot of optimization still to do. The fact I didn't have this issue in handheld, but I did on docked mode means maybe they optimized for handheld, but on docked mode they upped the resolution and didn't do any optimization, so that's why we're seeing the lag. I'm not 100% sure. I'm hoping it gets smoothed out, but either way, even despite the dips into the teens and the single digits, I had more fun playing that game than almost any other game at E3. It blows my mind that this game exists. That one, Nintendo didn't make it, or that it's not like this game isn't a game that makes me want another Star Fox or want another Rogue Squadron, right? Like when I say it's a Star Fox and Rogue Squadron combination, it's a Star Fox and Rogue Squadron combination. It's very much its own thing. It is not a Star Fox game. It is not a Rogue Squadron game. Although the interesting thing is you can play it like a Star Fox game if you want, because you can play as Fox McCloud and the R-Wing the entire game. From the very beginning. You never need to touch a different character. You never need to touch a different ship. You could do everything as Fox McCloud and the R-Wing, essentially making Starlink Battle for Atlas, for Switch owners, a Star Fox game. So I think that is very, very cool. But it is not a Star Fox game in the most traditional sense. It is not a Rogue Squadron game in the most traditional sense. It is very much its own brand new IP with its own story. Now, the story elements in the demo were interesting. There was a lot of like people trying to talk to me, you know, whoever you work for, because there wasn't a lot of backstory given, right? You're just dropped in the middle of wherever and had to figure things out. And there were people talking to you through your comms in your ship, and they were saying some really quirky and kind of lame things, if I'm being honest. It was very, very corny. You can kind of see some of it in the footage already, and I don't know if that's just the style of humor this game's going to have, but it really didn't bother me. I think the only thing that was weird is that I just didn't know what was going on story-wise. So, yeah, that obviously won't be an issue in the final game. That's just you're plopped in the middle of the game during a demo. Of course, you don't know the story, and there was no backstory given. I know more about the story of Ninjala than I do of Starlink, so take that for what it is. All I know is the game's gorgeous. The ships are amazing. The hot swapping of the physical items wasn't that bad. It looks weird in the footage when you see this giant ship on top of my Joy-Con controllers, because they give you a different Joy-Con dock that has an ability to hook up all the ships. The ships are extremely light. I'm talking like less than like a quarter of a pound. You basically don't even notice the additional weight. I mean, you look down and you're like, man, this looks weird, but it doesn't actually feel weird to play with it. And you can hot swap items, pilots. You have to connect a pilot first, then a ship main part, and then you can connect different wings and different guns and different stuff like that. And you can hot swap all of this stuff on the fly. Obviously, once the ship is destroyed, you have to switch to a different ship. And you can go back and forth between using physical toys and doing digital stuff. Again, toys are not required, or you can use a mix, or you can use just the toys. You can make it so when you disconnect something, the game pauses until you reconnect something, or you can make it completely smooth transition-wise, as in take off a gun, the game is still playing, and pop on another one right in the middle of a battle. Like, any way you want to play this game, it can be done. That is what I like. They are not limiting you with the Toys to Life thing. They're just saying, look, if you want Toys to Life, here it is. If you don't, that's okay too. This game is fantastic regardless. I can't tell you enough that the demo itself, if it wasn't for the lag, would be a 10 out of 10 demo for me. Instead, it's more like a 7 out of 10 because obviously it got down to the point that I noticed frame skipping, and that's never something you want to experience. Again, E3 demos are never perfect. I want to stress this right now. I don't want to knock the game too hard for this because E3 demos are always vertical slices that don't always show the best parts of the game because the games aren't fully optimized and they're not ready to come out yet. If they were ready to come out, they would be coming out, but they're not. So it's always important to remember at an event like E3 that these are not final builds at all. I'd best wait to see if lag is an issue till reviews come out. And I am going to attempt to contact Ubisoft and get a review copy of the game along with the, hopefully all the toys, but if not that, at least the Star Fox stuff. But we'll see what happens with that. I'm not sure if we're big enough for Ubisoft to care. If Ubisoft does care, I will be reviewing Starlink because that's how much I love it. I don't care where we are on Patreon. Starlink is a game I need to review. Anyways, folks, that's all I really have to say. I can't suggest Starlink Battle for Atlas enough. It is amazing. I don't care what platform you get it on, you're going to love it. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one. Yes.